Alright everybody, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're just going to be taking a quick look at the new Polar Star weapons and the new Inazuman weapons that increase our elemental burst damage based on the entire party's combined maximum energy capacity. So in 2.2, we're getting Childe's new signature weapon, I guess his officially signature weapon finally, as well as 3 new Inazuman weapons that look like this. I guess they're under the family of the Watatsumi Wavewalker class, and we're going to be getting a bow, a claymore, and a bow version of this. So today's video, I'm going to be showing you the calculations that I did, as well as how I think these weapons are going to do relative to the whole cast. Whether I think you should pull for them or not, and yeah, just my overall thoughts on this. So let's get right into it. Let's just first start with what the weapon banner looks like, and the weapon banner does not look too good for these weapons, unfortunately. We got the Polar Star, and then the other 5-star weapon is the Memory of Dust. So here's the weapon banner, and I want to say the weapon banner is not too great for a couple of reasons. The Memory of Dust is a very interesting weapon. You are definitely forced to use a shield if you want to maximize this weapon's potential, and if you're not, then you're not maximizing this weapon's potential, and it's not going to do so hot. The Rust, however, is a really good 4-star option for Childe, so that's pretty good. And then of course the new Inazuman Claymore here is actually really good too. Favonius Lance and Favonius Sword, they're kind of just average weapons. They're pretty great weapons to get to R5 and put on a support character that really needs energy recharge. So Chongling, if you don't have anything better, a R5 Favonius Lance is actually not bad, but you definitely have better choices. Favonius Sword is also just really on the average side in terms of support sword characters. We don't really have much. Bennett is not very good with the Favonius Sword because you really want to max out his base attack in order to get the most attack bonus. As for the Eye of Perception, I don't really even know who uses this. It gives you attack percentage, and it fires off an extra bolt that does extra damage. But other than that, it's just kind of a weapon that gives you extra attack percentage, nothing else. So not really great in that regard either. But it still has its uses, it's just that you have much better options. So it really does suck that this weapon got paired with this. Unfortunate, very unfortunate. But let's now just take a look at the weapons individually, because they're actually really good. Let's start with the Polar Star. Definitely by far Polar Star is Childe's best weapon, and I did a comparison between 3 of his best 5-star weapons: the Thundering Pulse that came with Yoimiya's banner, and the Skyward Harp that's been in the game since the very beginning. Thundering Pulse was a pretty good weapon for Childe because of that normal attack damage bonus. It was really good, but it also slightly beat out the Skyward Harp in terms of just raw damage, just by a little bit though. You can kind of see our charge attacks did 6,000 versus 5,000. Our Riptide did just a little bit more, just 100 damage more. Our burst did just a couple hundred points more of damage, but other than that, it wasn't that big of a difference except for our normal attacks. And normal attacks are a pretty big thing for Childe, so that's why this was a really good weapon. The thing about the Skyward Harp, however, though, is that it does have that extra passive ability that deals extra physical damage every so often, so that's obviously not taken into account here, but I think that damage is pretty negligible in terms of how much better the normal attack damage is, and if you actually vape your bursts and your Riptides, this will definitely end up being better. Also, really quickly, just to let you know how this worked, the Thundering Pulse used a crit rate headpiece because the main stat on this is crit damage. The Polar Star used crit damage because it has crit rate as its main stat. Then Skyward Harp also used crit damage because this is also has crit rate as its main stat. So that's just for your information there. And of course, he's built for just regular DPS, 4-piece Heart of Depth, attack percent, hydro damage bonus, and crit, and then just a couple more substats as well. Also mention that this is max stacks on the Polar Star and Thundering Pulse. So now let's take a look at the Polar Star in comparison to the Thundering Pulse, since those are the 2 of his best 5-star weapons. So in terms of normal attacks, it is going to be lower, which is to be expected because the Thundering Pulse was definitely built for Yoimiya, and she was definitely very focused on normal attack damage. So that's going to be lower with the Polar Star, and it makes sense because we don't get normal attack damage, we just get straight attack percent bonus. But since we get extra attack percent bonus, this means that our charge attacks, our Riptide Slash, our ranged burst, our melee burst, basically everything else gets a much bigger boost because of that. And as you can see, it's quite a sizable gap. So in terms of percentage, first off, this is colored in red because Thundering Pulse does better. So it does better by about 5.74%. Let's call it 6%. But then our charge attacks, there's a 12.62% damage difference here. So Polar Star does about 12% better damage. And then in terms of our Riptide, we're dealing about 20% more damage here, which I think is pretty sizable. A 20% damage increase, especially on vaped bursts, can be very strong. So Polar Star, definitely a lot better than Thundering Pulse here. Especially with Childe, you're not going to be vaping his normal attacks very much. You might get a couple vapes here and there, but even if you vape that, it's very low damage, so it's much better if you're vaping these higher damage numbers. So the actual damage increase is going to be quite significant. And here's a visualization if this also helps you out. You can see that obviously the Thundering Pulse has the best normal attack damage, then comes the Polar Star, and then the Skyward Harp. But then after that, the red, the Polar Star, does the most in every single category. And then after that, Thundering Pulse and Skyward Harp are actually really close. Everything except for when it comes to normal attack damage. So I thought that was quite interesting, and this definitely makes me want to try and get a Polar Star, but not when it's paired with a Memory of Dust and a lot of meh 4-star weapons. The Polar Star, what do you guys think? Are you guys going to try to pull for it? Are you guys going to take the risk and maybe go for Memory of Dust? Or maybe you actually want the Memory of Dust. Maybe that actually works for your team comp. Let me know down in the comments. Now, that was just for Childe. However, this weapon, it's very flexible because it's increasing our elemental skill and elemental burst damage. And then after hitting with normal attacks or literally anything, you're going to get an attack percent increase. So it's very flexible. So that begs the question, what other main DPS bow characters can use this? And the answer to that is quite a few actually. So if we just take a look at all the bow characters in the game, a lot of these characters can actually use it if they are in the main DPS role. Official, especially Official in the main DPS role, can definitely use this. A Kujo Sara can definitely use this. An Aloy can definitely use this. An Amber can definitely use this. Yoimiya is probably better off with her signature weapon because of the normal attack focus, and her elemental burst is not particularly strong, and she doesn't have an E skill that does damage, so not for Yoimiya. For Ganyu, I think you probably want to just stick with the Amos bow. The Amos bow is just kind of crazy with Ganyu, especially if you're using charge attacks as well, so you're going to get a much bigger bonus there. Amber, Fischl, Kujo, Aloy, maybe even a DPS Diona can use this weapon pretty well if you want to. Not sure about Venti. I don't own Venti, but usually we kind of keep him for his burst and his elemental skill, right? So I don't think people really use Venti for anything else other than that. But hey, it increases your elemental skill and elemental burst damage, so you know you can kind of use it there. But I think it's going to be much better on a main DPS role bow type character. The materials for this weapon is right here. It's going to require the Inazuma masks, the Spectre hearts, so you gotta go and kill a bunch of new Spectres, and then the new Rifthound claws. This is a new material that we're going to have to farm with the new update. This is also going to cost you 1 million Mora and about 900 Mystic Enhancement ore. So to everyone pulling for this weapon, good luck. I hope luck is in your favor and that you don't get the Memory of Dust, unless you really want it. Okay, let's talk about this new 4-star. So the new limited 4-star weapons are the bow, claymore, and polearm of this, and they all have the same passive ability. It's all part of the Watatsumi Wavewalker family, and this thing gives you extra elemental burst damage based on the combined party's maximum energy capacity. A maximum of 40% can be achieved this way, and it's based off of 0.12% of the combined energy cost. The materials for this, you're going to need the little branches, the new Rifthound claws, and some more of the Nabushi materials. So good luck with that. But in terms of performance, this weapon is actually pretty good. However, I should tell you that you cannot actually hit this 40% maximum damage bonus at R1 or R0, or is it R1? I think it's R1, right? R0 is not a thing. Sorry, index-based programmer brain. So I think it starts at R1. Yeah, okay, it says right here. Starts at refinement rank 1. So you actually can't hit 40% max damage bonus. The maximum amount of energy you can get is if you run Raiden and then 3 other 80 cost characters. And if you do that, then this is what happens. So here's a table for a bunch of different combinations of energy. Obviously not all of them because there's a lot, but here's the R1 information that you need to know. So 80, 80, 80, 90 gives us 330 total energy, and then you have a 39.6% damage bonus. Really close to 40, but you don't quite hit 40. If you go quadruple 80, you end up with 38.4, 80, 80, 60, 36, so on and so forth. Basically, every 20 energy is 2.4% less damage bonus. So that should kind of give you an idea on how to maximize the damage bonus for this. And so now let's just talk about how this performs comparatively to other weapons. Just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to be using the 36% damage bonus. So 36% damage bonus means we're running an 80, 80, 80, 60 team. And so the performance of this weapon with 36% extra elemental burst damage looks like this. Pretty good. If you run attack percent, you hit some pretty good numbers comparatively to other things. By the way, this is Beidou, and she is running Severed Fate for Peace Emblem of Severed Fate. And then if you run energy recharge, obviously your damage is going to go lower, but you get more energy recharge so that you can actually spam your burst more, which is probably going to be much better in the long run. If you can't spam your burst, then you're doing less damage overall. So what I would do is I would compare the energy recharge calculations here with all of these. These are all the different kinds of combinations Beidou can run that gives her good energy recharge and a decent amount of damage as well. So for example, we're running Sacrificial with attack percent, the Inazuman Forgeable with attack percent, Prototype Archaic with energy recharge, Favonius with attack percent, etc, etc. So if we bring this into the mix, you can clearly see that the new 4-star weapon deals the most damage, and its energy recharge is pretty good as well. Our E skill damage is in the middle. It doesn't do as well as the top two, but the elemental burst damage is just so much stronger, which I think is much more useful. There aren't very many other Claymore characters that can use this weapon. Really, your only choices are Beidou and Chongyun, maybe Diluc, maybe Sayu, maybe Xinyan, but Noelle and Razor and Eula, they will probably not benefit too hard from this weapon because of their playstyles. For Razor, you definitely want to go physical damage, and his elemental burst damage isn't really significant. It's a very small portion of his attack percentage that is elemental burst damage. And for Noelle, she doesn't benefit from elemental burst damage at all. For Xinyan, we could run her as a pure elemental burst support character, right? She has 100% crit rate at, I think, C2 on her burst, so that can actually be quite good. If we're just spamming Xinyan elemental burst, it also has a 60 cost though, so you do lose a little bit of damage bonus, but not too much. But it can still be pretty strong, especially because of that 100% crit rate. Maybe Xinyan might be a good candidate for this weapon. Sayu, I think she's really based around healing. Don't really think we focus too much on elemental burst damage per se on Sayu, so I think Sayu has better options. So our top 3 contenders here are Beidou, Chongyun, and Xinyan. I would put these two at an S tier for this weapon. Xinyan maybe at like an A tier. Eula I would put maybe at B tier. Sayu at B tier. Diluc at B tier, and then Noelle and Razor at C tier. That's the tier list that I would do for this weapon in terms of which characters benefit the most. Since we did this math for Beidou, we can very similarly come to the same conclusion that other weapons like this is going to behave pretty much the same. So since we're getting a polearm and a bow version of this, let's take a look at who can use it for those types of weapons. So bow characters. Okay, look at that. Xiangling gets another weapon that she loves. This is definitely going to be great for Xiangling. If you're using the catch on your Raiden already and don't want to put on Xiangling, the spear version of this is going to be pretty dang good. Rosaria as well, a sub DPS Rosaria, her elemental burst is pretty strong, so I think this is going to be really good. Raiden Shogun, yes, pretty good as well. It's basically like the catch. I'm kind of curious how they kind of compare. I did not do the math comparing this weapon and the catch. Very curious to see if they're very similar in damage or not. The catch gives us 32% elemental burst damage, which is a little bit lower, but it also gives us crit rate, and you should not ignore crit rate. Crit rate is pretty good in increasing your average damage. Wu Tao and Zhao don't benefit from this at all. Ignore it for them. Zhongli, yeah, I guess maybe if you're going to be spamming his meteors, but Zhongli has better options. So that's a very interesting thing. Maybe we'll do a video comparing the catch and the polearm version of this weapon. And then in terms of bow, let's see who loves spamming their elemental bursts. Venti loves doing that. Diona kind of likes doing that. Vishal, not too much. A support Amber. If anyone has C6 Amber, her C6 gives you attack bonus upon casting her burst. But I don't know if many people have a C6 Amber. But if you do, support Amber, not bad there. Not bad there. Aloy and Kojo Sarah, pretty good for these two as well. The only thing I would say is that if you are lacking energy recharge, just remember that you want to build some energy recharge on your support characters, because the value in your support characters are their elemental bursts, especially if they're off-field damage dealers. So that's a limited 4-star weapon. I think it's pretty good, but again, I really dislike the practice of limited 4-star weapons. I had the same opinion when the lithic weapons came out. I don't usually go for them, and I don't usually advocate that you do go for them either. I'm not gonna say that they're a trap, but I just think that characters are inherently more interesting and more fun, but that is completely an opinion. As well as one thing to think about is the weapon banner in order to hit pity is much less than the character banners. I believe the soft pity is definitely lower than the soft pity on the character banner. Soft pity on character banner is somewhere around 75. And correct me if I'm wrong, the weapon banner I believe is around 65. I could be totally wrong on that because I don't pull on the weapon banner, so I don't remember that number. But those are all things that you should consider if you are deciding to pull for one of these weapons. Again, they're pretty good, but it's not paired with a banner that is very appealing. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys in this video today. Thank you so much if you made it this far. And while you're at it, hit the like button, follow me on Twitch because that's where I did this video. Maybe even subscribe to the channel. And until next time, I will see you guys later.